Inspiring interviews with today's top landlords. This is the Rental Income Podcast. And now, Dan Lane.
Suzanne, let's start off by talking about your portfolio. What does your portfolio look like?
Well, I just added my 18th unit to yesterday, I guess. So 18 units, single and multifamily properties in Oregon, Michigan, and now North Carolina. And it's a mix of long-term and short-term rentals.
Looking back on what you've done and building out your portfolio, would you say that it was pretty easy or pretty complicated?
I don't know that easy is the word I would use with anything to do with real estate investing, because if it was easy, everyone would do it. What I will say is my approach to real estate is that you have to sacrifice one of three things, either money, time, or comfort. And I chose to sacrifice my comfort to get where I am today.
Would you say the sacrifice was worth it?
Oh, absolutely. And just the fact of where I'm sitting when I'm talking to you right now, I'm in France, and I get to be here for as long as I want. I can work remote, and I know that my rentals are bringing in passive income for me. So it's absolutely been worth it.
On the podcast today, we're going to talk about some of the sacrifices that Suzanne made to be able to get to where she is today. We'll talk about how she financed her portfolio, and she also mentioned that she owns properties in Oregon, Michigan, and North Carolina. We'll figure out why she owns properties in so many different areas. Joining us on the show today from France, but she's normally in Oregon, is Suzanne Moore. We'll take a quick break to thank our sponsors. We'll come right back and we'll talk to Suzanne. Investing in rental properties can be complicated, but it doesn't have to be. My friends at MidSouth HomeBuyers sell completely rehab turnkey properties in both Memphis and Little Rock, and they've been doing it for 23 years. All their properties come totally rehab. They put on a new roof, new kitchen, new bath, new plumbing, new electric. Everything is brand new. They also have a tenant that's moved in before you close, so you get cash flow on day one. MidSouth HomeBuyers also continues to manage the property for you after closing. It couldn't be easier. Everything is 100% done for you. All their properties also come with a couple of guarantees. They have a 1-year total maintenance warranty and a lifetime occupancy guarantee. Personally, I just closed on my 5th property with MidSouth HomeBuyers, and I couldn't be happier. If you want to talk to a happy customer, reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions, or you can check them out at midsouthhomebuyers.com. For decades, real estate has been a cornerstone of the world's largest portfolios, but it's also historically been complex, time-consuming, and expensive. But imagine if real estate investing was suddenly easy. All the benefits of owning real, tangible assets without all the complexity and expense. That's the power of the Fundrise Flagship Real Estate Fund. Now you can invest in a $1.1 billion portfolio of real estate starting with as little as $10. 4,700 single-family rental homes spread across the booming Sunbelt. 3.3 million square feet of highly sought-after industrial facilities thanks to the e-commerce wave. The Flagship Fund is one of the largest of its kind, well-diversified, and managed by a team of professionals. And now it's available to you. Visit fundrise.com/RIP to explore the fund's full portfolio, check out historical returns, and start investing in just minutes. Carefully consider the investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the Fundrise Flagship Fund before investing. This and other information can be found in the fund's perspective at fundrise.com/flagship. This is a paid advertisement. It's a lot of work to find a really good rental property, and when you actually find that property, you want to make sure you're working with a lender that can get that loan closed. The lender that I recommend is Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. She's a nationwide lender, and her specialty is helping investors finance rental properties. She has a ton of loan programs, and she can find something customized to you for your situation. If you want to find out more or you're ready to get started today, just go to ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE lendinggroup.com, NMLS 42056. Suzanne, it sounds like you're doing some pretty cool stuff with your rentals. So is traveling something that the rentals have enabled you to do more of?
Yes. Freedom for me has been paramount for most of my life. And the way that takes shape in my life is traveling and getting to experience other cultures, languages, and just have new experiences. So my goal with real estate investing was to have enough passive income that I could travel in whatever fashion I want and know that I have some passive income coming in to fuel my adventures.
I love it. So how long did it take you from the time you bought your first property to where you are today?
It's been 10 years.
10 years, okay.
Since I bought my first duplex as a renter.
So you were renting a property and then renting out a duplex?
Yeah, so I was renting a single family home and paying someone else's mortgage, and realized at that time that, with real estate prices the way they were and where the market was back in 2014, it was an opportune time to get into the market. So we bought our first duplex, even though we didn't live in it while we fixed it up, which was a gift.
Yeah.
And then we got the first unit rented out within that first month. So actually our first month's mortgage payment was paid for by the tenants. And by the time we got the second unit fixed up and rented, we had our first passive income check.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I want to hear about sacrificing your comfort. So, what does that mean? How did you sacrifice your comfort to build your rental portfolio?
House hacking.
House hacking, okay.
Simple answer, yes. So, I said, thankfully for the first property, we didn't live in the chaos. But essentially, ever since then, that has been our MO for building our real estate portfolio. My husband is a contractor, and so we would find properties that were just barely financeable with conventional standards. We would move in, fix them up, live in the chaos with construction dust everywhere. And as soon as they were nice, we would move on to the next property and do it all over again.
How many times have you house hacked?
So we've house hacked twice, but we've done the live-in flip at least 4 times. So sacrificing comfort in both of those scenarios of not having a beautiful home to always host friends and family and feel super proud of how nice our house was, because usually it's not.
The live and flip, I think, is something we probably don't talk enough about on the podcast. It's a great way to make money. So you were buying a property, living there as you were fixing it up, and then selling the property?
Ultimately, we did that with one property. We sold it. The rest we actually flipped into long-term rentals as soon as they were nice.
Oh, awesome. Okay. So were you able to put down a smaller down payment because you were buying that as a primary residence and then later turning it into a rental?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay. So it sounds like your house hacking here has enabled you to lower your housing expense. So you're able to save more money?
Yes. So for example, in Portland, we had a pretty large house. It was a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom. And then we ended up converting the basement into a 2-bed, 1-bath apartment and lived there underneath a family of 6. So 4 little girls under the age of 10 were running around above us for 2 years, but their family was paying our mortgage. And that meant that we had the ability to save quickly and start investing in Bend, Oregon, which was ultimately where we wanted to be living and thought we would have to wait until we were retired to live there, but got to move to Bend, Oregon sooner. Up until recently, we bought everything conventionally. So we got conventional loans through a mortgage broker, and there's generally a limit of up to 10 loans. So between the two of us, we never reached that max on each of our credit.
Would you say, I'm just trying to figure out how you've been able to buy so many properties, and, really, 10 years is a long time, but it's really not. So, like, would you say that the reason you've been able to buy so many properties is because you were house hacking, which was keeping your expenses low, so you had more money to put into buying properties? You were doing the live-in flips, that's generating some money, and then you're also taking that money and buying properties. Those properties are generating cash flow, and that's just giving you more money to put into more down payments.
Exactly. So the house hacking was a way to accelerate our purchasing by having someone else pay our mortgage while we were living there. And then we lived below our means. When we first started buying properties 10 years ago, at that point in my career, I think I was making $65,000. So I was not a high earner by any means, but I was a really, really good saver. And having that first down payment was really what got everything started, because then on a few properties, not many, but on a few, we did do the BRRRR method where we bought, renovated, refinanced, and used that money for the next one, but not on everything.
Let's talk about your property. So you said you've got properties in Oregon, Michigan, and North Carolina. Why are you investing in so many different areas?
I want to have diversification, and Oregon was the place where I invested where I lived first. So I was living in Portland. I invested in Portland. I wanted to move to Bend, so I bought investment property in Bend as a future plan. The Michigan purchase was because we have family there, so we knew we had some boots on the ground to help us have eyes, ears, and noses when we were looking at properties. And the North Carolina deal that I just closed, I had someone local there that I know from a mastermind group, a real estate mastermind group, who brought me the deal, and the numbers worked, so I said yes.
Do you self-manage all the properties?
I self-manage the properties in the area that I live, so now in Central Oregon, and I have a professional manager in Portland. We pay family to help us in Michigan, and I plan to self-manage the North Carolina rental.
All right, let's dive in a little bit more to the rental. So you said in Oregon, you've got properties in Portland and in Bend. Well, what do you have? Like what are the properties like in those areas?
We have single and multifamily in Portland, all long-term rentals. In the Bend area, we have a mix of short and long-term rentals, and all of them were short-term rentals during COVID. And then as that market softened in terms of revenues and heated up in terms of competition, we transitioned 2 of those back to long-term rentals. So we still have 1 short-term rental, and that's currently where we're actually house hacking.
Okay, so you're still house hacking today.
That is correct.
Wow. And so tell me about the property that you're house hacking in.
It is a vacation rental, and it's actually been a vacation rental for 20 plus years. We bought it directly from the previous owner through a relationship that we had, and there is another building on the property that has a little apartment, so that's where we live when we are in the area.
So you live in the little apartment and rent out the bigger house?
That's correct, yes.
Wow.
Still sacrificing our comfort.
Yeah, that really is a sacrifice, I think. It's like you could have had the bigger house, but you're probably able to make way more money renting out the bigger house.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. And then tell me about the rentals in Michigan.
We purchased two duplexes in Michigan a few years ago. One as a house hack for my husband's mom. So she lives in one of the units and she has eyes on all the rest of the units. So she's essentially our boots on the ground quasi property manager.
So how did you know the area? Like it's always, when you're going to a new area to invest, you never quite, I think it's harder to know what the area is like where when you're buying locally in Oregon, you know what a good street is or a bad street, or you just kind of know the area. Was it hard to figure that out in Michigan?
Not at all. And that's why we bought in this particular area, because we have family there who is able to guide us to the particular neighborhoods that they thought would be a good investment for us. So we truly did rely on their input and assessment of the areas, and we only bought in the neighborhoods that they felt comfortable.
Did the properties need a lot of work?
All of the units in Michigan came tenant occupied, so they had paying tenants in them. They did have some deferred maintenance, so as tenants have since vacated, we have upgraded the units with things like new windows, updated flooring, new paint, and some updated appliances.
Do the properties cash flow a lot better? Like I imagine Oregon is a pretty expensive area and Michigan is probably a much cheaper area. So do they make more money?
They definitely have higher cash flow in Michigan. What I see in real estate is you're either getting cash flow or appreciation. And if you're really lucky, you're getting both. So we've got the appreciation happening with the Oregon properties, and we've got the cash flow happening with the Michigan properties.
Okay. And tell me about the North Carolina property. So this is a property you just closed on yesterday?
That is correct.
Awesome.
Yes.
Tell me about the property.
So it is a single family property that is tenant occupied. Tenant has lived there for 8 years. The seller decided to sell it sub 2. So I just bought my first sub 2 property, figuring out how all of that works. But it cash flows right out of the gate, and it's my strongest cash flowing property.
Explain how that works for anyone that doesn't understand sub 2. Tell us what that means.
Essentially, what it means is I am taking over the payments for the seller's underlying mortgage. So the mortgage stays in the seller's name. I make the payments. I inherit essentially a 3.5% mortgage. And as soon as that mortgage is paid off, it's free and clear. And in this particular case, I am paying the seller for his equity in 7 years, a balloon payment in 7 years.
All right. So there's nothing today, but in 7 years, you've got to pay him the money, the equity that he has today.
Exactly.
So then
we pre-negotiated the equity amount today, and in 7 years, presumably, my equity will be significantly higher than that.
So are you thinking that as the property appreciates over the next 7 years, you'll be able to refi and not have to actually come up with cash?
That is one possibility, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Now you've got a long-term tenant in there. And so I assume that tenant has been paying on time and taking good care of the property.
Yes. So during my FaceTime walkthrough with the wholesaler who brought me the property, I met the tenant. I've, have already established a relationship with the tenant. I've got the lease from the seller, between the seller and the tenant, which was assigned to me. And so from here on out, I collect all the rents.
Awesome. And do you need a property manager, or do you think that's going to be pretty easy because of the long-term tenancy?
I think it'll be pretty easy.
Yeah.
They've been there for 8 years. They've always paid on time, and they take care of the house like it's their own. So I'm grateful to have a tenant occupied property.
Yeah. And you never went there to see it in person. This was all over FaceTime.
Exactly.
That's so awesome. I love how technology has made investing out of state so much easier. I mean, with these Michigan properties you have and with North Carolina, this would have been just so hard to do at any time in the past.
Totally. And the Michigan properties, we didn't see until long after we had closed. And we didn't see them in person. We trusted our family and our realtor to go in and check them out on our behalf.
In addition to her rental properties, Suzanne also runs a real estate team in Bend, Oregon. She tells me there's a lot of opportunity in Bend right now for midterm rentals. There's also some Airbnbs and some regular long-term rentals. If you want to talk to Suzanne to see if investing in Bend makes sense for you, you can find her information at rentalincomepodcast.com/episode 514. I'd like to thank Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group for sponsoring today's episode. If you're looking to buy a rental property, whether you're just getting started or you want to add to your portfolio, reach out to Chaley. She's got a ton of different loan programs, and she can find something that'll work for you in your situation. You can track Chaley down at ridgelendinggroup.com and MLS 42056. Thank you so much for checking out the podcast today. Make sure you hit the follow button. I put out a new episode every single Tuesday. And if you're following the show, you'll get notified when the next episode comes out. My name is Dan Lane, and this has been the Rental Income Podcast.